I am absolutely delighted to have Áine Homer here today. And I love your name, Queen of the Fairies. Here you are.
Here
Welcome.
I am. Yes. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for inviting me to have a conversation about this incredible topic.
Yes, so today we are really, this is the Conscious Shift series, right? And so we're talking about the change that the vision that you have, the change that you want to see in the world, the shift that you are part of bringing forth. And I know that you've got a massive vision and ways of doing things that aren't mainstream and get incredible results. So yeah, I've known you for a couple of years now, and it's been on my radar to have a conversation with you. And so I'm really delighted we're finally doing this. And I have recommended you to people as well. But I'll be honest, I don't know as much as I would like to know about what you do, why you do it, what is possible for people through getting support with you, because I've always had a sense that that is that it's this huge change. And I was listening to one of your lives last night and I was like, oh my goodness, people in my world, I work with parents a lot, need to know the magic that you have to offer.
Thank you very much. Well, in short, I specialize in supporting babies with reflux. I believe that reflux is not normal. It's common, it's not normal. And when we take a holistic view, we get to look at what is actually causing any baby's reflux. I mean, my background, I'm actually an engineer as a background, which is I was taught in a very masculine world how to figure out problems, to always ask the question, well, what's causing this problem? Because when we understand what's causing it, we get the opportunity to fix it, to heal it, to repair it, whatever that might be. And if we understand the underlying root cause, then we can prevent it from being a big thing. So I also studied traditional Chinese medicine, graduated, oh my gosh, 10 years ago. And that also, while being very Eastern as opposed to, mechanical engineering is quite a Western logical point of view, the Eastern medicine teaches the very same thing, that every single symptom, experience, pain, niggle, anything that a human feels, first of all, is relevant, regardless or not of whether a doctor can find something wrong. There's like the chronic backache that people go to the doctor and it's like, well, I've got a sore back. Yeah, well, there's nothing technically wrong with you, so you don't. So, but I can feel it.
But I do.
Yeah. Chinese medicine looks at that and goes, yes, you do. And then let's find out, because it will never, no symptom ever happens on its own in isolation. So we go, right, well, what else is going on? And we put together this jigsaw puzzle and you're like, okay, this is happening in your toe. Your toe is connected to your tongue via your fascia tissue. So that's causing all this and this. And I pick on my toe because I did a live a few weeks ago after I had a really sore toe. And I went to my osteopath. I'm like, can you just sort it? I can't like lunge properly without my toe hurting. And he's like, yeah, this is all related to your tongue tie. I'm like,
that's just like, what?
Yeah. And he's like, well, you know the way. He's like, I've been talking to him about my tongue tie for years. And he's like, yeah, well, it actually causes you to be more imbalanced on the left side. So I bet you stand like this and you point your foot like that and you rest on this. He goes, you've imbalanced your hips, you've imbalanced your knee, you've imbalanced your foot, and now it's affecting your big toe. I'm like, wow. Like, oh my goodness. I'm like, can I get rid
hang
of
on, can we just pause a minute?
Yeah.
This is caused by tongue tie, right?
Yeah.
And like, I don't know a lot about tongue tie, but probably like most people. So I suspect I'm, quite mainstream in with that in terms of my knowledge, that I think of it as something related to babies when they're born might have tongue tie and struggle with feeding. And I think of it as being an issue when for babies, not for adult grown women and men, right? So for that, and I suspect I'm not alone in that.
No, and this is why my work with infants is it's a lifelong benefits to the kids. So, for example, I mean, I've just done a massive series in my app on tongue tie and tongue function and movement. But can you imagine for a minute trying to speak with your tongue restricted in its movement and held down on the floor of your mouth?
It would be very difficult.
Can you imagine trying to swallow and drink some water without being able to move your tongue? Can you imagine being able to lick an ice cream? Like, these are some of the basic things that we think about or we don't think about. The medics go, oh, your baby's not breastfed, tongue tie doesn't matter. It's like, it does. When we chew, it's up to our tongue to move food around our mouth properly, to mix it with saliva to support digestion. Like babies who get feeding aversions, a lot of them have some sort of tongue issue. I will say it's not always tongue tie. It's a really complex structure of the mouth. There's other things that can go on. But, and this is where the medical community that has decided to forget about tongue tie being a thing. And I say this because my own pediatrician, after my lactation consultant had confirmed my daughter had a tongue tie, she's like, you can go and see him, but you'll waste your money. I was like, really? She goes, yeah, he doesn't believe in it. I'm like, how is it a thing to believe in or not? It's there or it isn't. Sure enough, I went to see him. He's like, I don't believe in tongue tie. Your baby's got reflux. I'm like, but surely she has reflux because of the tongue tie. He's like he didn't get it. He didn't get it. And that really started the passion. I'm like, well, I'm starting to understand how the tongue works. I put so much stuff together. My mechanical my mechanical engineering is like, if the tongue's doing that, what is doing this, and what's happening here, and all, like, that's where I learned everything, was this questioning. Going, what if that, like, my brain is
all connected. This is the thing, it's all connected, and I can get the meeting of these two worlds, the masculine and maybe more feminine worlds per se, or the logical kind of structural and the more spiritual, because it's all based on the same thing, which is everything is connected and interconnected, and it's interesting what you said about the I don't believe in this, right? So when I was listening to your live, you shared a bit about your journey, and it made me think, oh my gosh, it reminded me of being on a journey with allergies with my children, and that's the difficulty starting 3 weeks into after my eldest was born, and then 2.5 years later actually finding the people who could actually support us. And the thing in the way, the gatekeeper, was the GP, who didn't believe in, you saying about this pediatrician doesn't believe in tongue tie, then if you're met with a gatekeeper to support who doesn't believe in tongue tie, or doesn't believe that eczema can, the people with eczema should be referred to a dermatologist, right? So he was like, I am not referring you. So like 2.5 years until we got past this person, and we didn't know that was his belief either. So he was just sending us away, telling us to send us to a pediatrician who didn't know what was going on. As soon as we got to the right place, as soon as we got to dermatology and saw a dermatology nurse specialist, she was like, yeah, of course your daughter's glands have been up for the last 18 months. It's her eczema. And the pediatrician we saw couldn't figure out why our glands were up. Like, because it's this lack of this holistic approach,
And I'll be completely honest, Sarah. So I will be totally honest. The medical system, the Western medical system, absolutely has its place. You know, absolutely. If I get meningitis, if I'm seriously ill, if I chop my arm off, I am going straight to the hospital, because that is what they are phenomenal. absolutely emergency medicine, Western doctors have it down, like 100%. There is nothing that an acupuncturist can do for me if I've literally chopped my finger off. Yeah, they're not going to stick it back on. A doctor in the Western hospital will sew it back on and put it all back together. They are phenomenal. You know, when it comes to things like meningitis and really, you know, even the strep A thing that's going on at the moment, there are some cases where antibiotics are amazing and are the right thing to do. Absolutely. And we have to, I think, as individuals, we need to start taking personal responsibility.
Yeah.
For whom we're asking the questions. Legitimately, I would not ask my hairdresser to fix my car. Because that's not the area of expertise they sell that they have. They're like, no, I do hair, not cars. Like, go to the mechanic because they do the cars, not us.
Yeah.
And I think we need to start doing that with our health and being, first of all, being responsible individuals, listening to ourselves. If like, and this is my first recommendation for all parents, is if you think your baby is more unsettled than they should be, then they probably are.
And thank you for saying that. It's one of my questions. I was thinking, I haven't even looked at my questions, right? But I did before we started. And one of my questions is, what are 3 things you feel people need to know about reflux, you know, your speciality? So you've just told us the first thing.
That's the first thing. The second thing is it can be completely resolved. 99% of babies, it's completely resolvable without medication.
Wow. That's quite a big claim, isn't it?
Yeah. And that is because when we understand, and those babies for whom it can't be resolved, it can be managed in such a way that they don't suffer so badly.
Yeah. Because, you know, it's interesting. I didn't have to deal with reflux. Hooray! Had a whole heap of other things, but no reflux. Thank you for something. Yeah, so but when my youngest was born, I was pregnant with a lady that I met through NCT with our first children. We were pregnant at the same time. We had our second children within a few weeks of each other. And her daughter had, just horrendous reflux, like just screaming for hours. And she was just, it was really hard. And yeah, it was really hard. And one of the things I thought, my assumption was, well, at least she'll grow out of it and it'll pass, you know, it'll be horrendous for a while and it'll pass. But it was really, really difficult. And she was just like, well, I just have refluxy babies. She had that with both her children. And I don't know, is that a thing? Does it tend to happen?
It does and it doesn't. There's no stats on it. And typically, like I get a lot of parents come to me, their second babies going, we had it in the first, the doctors weren't able to help, so we're going a different route. This is what helped, you know, this is what eventually helped. We've tried all that because that helped for the first. It's not helping for the second.
Right.
And that's because there's over 30 different things that cause or contribute to reflux in babies.
Right.
Not as simple. It's not a one size fits all. And that's why my approach is always, right, let's take every child as an individual and see what's going on for them. And then we can get the right answer for them.
Because that's quite a lot, you know, 30 different kind of contributing factors or causes, you know, to be able to.
And babies can have multiple things that have gone on. And if these things have happened, it doesn't guarantee baby's going to have reflux. And it doesn't guarantee that they are a cause of baby's reflux. But for some babies, they do. So it's about, like, it's I have been thinking for years, because of my engineering brain, because of the way I see things, it's almost like, you know, it's like the Matrix. Some people just see the numbers. I just have this, I suppose it's a gift to look at a whole set of symptoms and go, oh yeah, now how they go together. And I think I've been doing it for so long, it just comes to me. And I get this when I'm teaching my students who I train in this as well. And they're like, how do you do that so quickly? I'm like, I've been doing it for years, like practice. And I remember meeting another graduate like 6 months later. And she goes, yeah. She goes, it only takes me 10 minutes. Go, yeah, I've got this.
And it is that repetition, isn't it? And
it is,
you know, and I love what you this is so important, I think, for people to be aware of and to hear. Like I say, no experience of reflux, experience of allergies, right?
Yeah.
And multiple allergies. So working really hard and trying lots and lots of different things, but until we got to the underlying cause, or knowing what the underlying cause, it took us 2.5 years to find the underlying cause and the biggest contributing factor. So the first thing people will tell you with eczema or allergies is cut out dairy. Well, if that isn't the biggest contributing factor, it is a factor, but not the biggest one. It doesn't make a lot of difference, because for one person it did, because that was the main contributing factor, right?
Exactly.
When it is, it's amazing. It's like a miracle.
Yeah.
When it isn't, and it's dust in our case, oh, ouch. Yeah. We were like, oh no.
It's okay. We had sulfites.
Maybe it's dust.
Yeah, we had sulfites. It took us 3 years to get to that.
Yeah. So it's like, so that was, but once you get to it, things can shift so quickly, can't they?
They can.
Well, once you've ripped out all your carpets and completely renovated your house, things can shift really quickly.
We're in the process of that. We're like pausing for a few weeks to empty some boxes and just live. We've got a brand new kitchen and it's beautiful. So I do know, you rip it all out, you put it back in, you get these step changes. And that's kind of what I do, because I do support babies with allergies as well, because it's such it's one of those 30 things that can contribute to reflux. One. And actually allergies very often get misdiagnosed as reflux.
Right.
So babies get labeled with this by the medical system. And I think in a survey I did a few years ago, something like 90% of babies with cow's milk protein allergy were on reflux medications. I'm like going, why? Because if they've got an allergy, surely we should remove the allergen, and then they won't have the reflux type symptoms. It's like, my mind just works a different way, and I get frustrated because I don't understand how the doctors can be so blinkered to, no, this is our approach, this is how we're doing it, there's no other way possible. And I've got relatives who are doctors. They won't even talk to me about this subject. It's like, I'm literally changing lives, guys. You could avoid medication, these kids. And because the challenge is these medications are not harmless. They're dishing them out like jelly beans, but they're not harmless. If you were to read the patient information leaflet that comes with it, you'd probably go, really? I'm not sure I want to give that to my baby. And yet
it's tricky when you go down the medicalized route and it's out of alignment with your values. So coming back to us, that was the thing for us, is we didn't want to be using steroids on our child. They are not harmless,
exactly.
And like you were saying about the antibiotics earlier, it can be useful to use things in the appropriate situation. So there's a place for everything, there's a place for it all, and it's and it can be challenging working that out as a parent,
And that's the thing I say to parents is, so I think it's kind of my third big thing would be, if you've asked people the same thing, or you've gone and asked for help for your reflux, for your baby's reflux, multiple times from maybe even multiple doctors, and if you're still not happy with the answers, then either change the question or change who you're asking. And don't be afraid to look outside the medical system. I think we're living in a world at the moment where there used to be God, and God used to be on this pedestal, and it was all of that. Now, as society, especially being Irish, we took God and religion off the pedestal a number of decades ago because of the abuse that's happening in the Catholic Church. But the world seemed to have taken religion off the pedestal and put Western medicine back on top.
Mm.
And there is this underlying current that is, well, if a doctor doesn't have an answer, then there must not be an answer to be had. That's not true.
Mm.
I was listening to the incredible Gabor Mate on a podcast with Stephen Bartlett, the Dyer CEO, last week. Go and check it out. It is phenomenal, because here is a proper Western doctor explaining what disease is. It's a, it's a dis-ease in the body.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
also says, we don't have them. I have a cup. It's a thing. I can hold it. What an illness is a response of the body to a set of scenarios. It could be emotions, it could be bugs, it could be pathogens, it could be, dodgy piece of fish that we ate. He goes, it's not something that is separate from the body. It's a response of the body.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so when we understand the environment the body's in and why it's responding like that, then we get to choose to address that underlying cause.
And that's such a great mindset shift, isn't it? Because, hearing you talk about that, I was thinking, yeah, I've been thinking about disease as a thing, and it's not a thing, it's a response. It isn't a thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And I just hearing somebody who was, just was very well versed in medicine saying that, and his whole view was the Western culture needs to change. We need to stop treating things as stovepipes. In Western medicine, a baby will be brought after doctors, or go to a pediatrician, and then they'll be referred to an ENT, ear, nose, throat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then they'll work with a gastroenterologist, esophagus, stomach, intestines. For so many of them, nobody's looking at the mouth. The dentist looks at the teeth, but who's looking at the mouth? Who's looking the whole digestive system? Because the digestive system includes the lips, the teeth, the tongue, the mouth, and then the pharynx and larynx, the throat, the esophagus, the stomach, the intestines, and colon. It's a whole system that works together. And funnily enough, because it's inside this complex body we've got, it speaks to the respiratory system. It speaks to our immune system. It is a part of the immune system as well. Stomach
all
acid.
interconnected, isn't it? Yeah.
It's nothing is a stovepipe, but yet the doctors, so the gastroenterologists, are handing out PPI medications. This is omeprazole, lansoprazole, pantoprazole, that change stomach acid to help prevent esophageal burn, which it's a very important role for these medications to play. It prevents the esophagus being physically burnt and eroded by stomach acid.
Mm-hmm.
So they can play a role in the short term. However, there is no recognition of how it changes the ability of the stomach to digest food and break it down so it can then be absorbed. Okay. And because these medications lead to low vitamin C, reduced magnesium and calcium absorption, reduced vitamin B12, and reduced iron. All of these things are quite important at any stage in life, but really important for babies. They change how fat is absorbed or broken down. And they also change the immune system protective role of stomach acid. So we see a risk in Clostridium difficile and gastroenteritis bugs building up, and small intestine bacterial overgrowth, because the stomach acid is no longer acidic to kill these pathogenic bacteria that we eat and encounter all the time. So short-term use of these medications is absolutely fine. It's the long-term use, without that understanding what's going on, is not. And this handing them out like they're jelly beans to babies for whom they're not even proven safe for use really, really gets me. So, this is the conscious parenting element of me, is parents just urge you to take responsibility. Read the leaflets, make the decisions, and go, okay, be really, really happy and content with your decision.
And then ask the questions, because we don't necessarily know. And you read this stuff and you're obviously taking the advice of what, the guidance that you're getting. But like you say, it's about asking, sometimes changing the question, like how long can we carry on doing this for? What's the impact? If we're 2 months, 3 months down the line, what's the impact if we continue?
Exactly.
And what are the other options? Or so checking in, and but not assuming that the doctor will lead in that,
Exactly. And I
sometimes.
have, do you know what? I have a whole section, excuse me, in my new community app on reflux medications.
Mm-hmm.
Because when my daughter was eventually given medications at 7 months, I asked the allergist who gave us the ranitidine, I said, well, what does this do? How long is she going to be on it for? What are side effects? And he literally looked down at me because he was 6 foot something. And he's like, oh, you don't need to worry your pretty head about that. You'll
Oh,
just ring me next Tuesday thanking me for changing your life. And I looked at him and was like going, I'm
really?
exhausted.
What?
Yeah, I'm exhausted. I'm
What the
depressed.
what?
But my daughter ain't getting that medication. Sunshine. Like I was at breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, if you can't answer these questions for me, I am not just going to give my child a medication. But that was who I was. Now I know so many of my clients and followers, etc. They're like, but we don't have any options. They're so exhausted, they don't even know what to ask. So I've
Mm-hmm.
created not just a list of what to ask, but also what the answers should look like.
Oh, what an amazing resource.
Because it's really important to me that parents can trust their doctors. And if the doctors are like, oh, well, I don't know about that, or this or that, and if they're being BS'd, basically,
Mm-hmm.
the parents know and they're not in a state of stress and they're like, okay, well, I know I can go and do my own research about this and then make up my own mind. Because
Mm-hmm.
as parents, we are the custodians of our child's health until they're old enough to make those decisions for themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is my responsibility to make decisions on behalf of my children that when they're 16, I can sit down with them and say, well, this is why I made that decision. This
Mm-hmm.
is why I did that. And as long as we can hand on heart say, I made the best decision with the resources I had available at the time. And those resources do include how exhausted we are, because that's our mental capacity and ability to think. They do include how stressed we are and the breaks we need in life. It's not just about time or money.
No, absolutely not. I mean,
It's about all of it.
yeah. And when you're at breaking point, because we were definitely in that, like 2.5 years of having a child that can't sleep, was just like, and feeling like there's no help. Because one of the key things for me with that was, I read a book called The Gentle No Cry Sleep Solution, it's called.
Yeah.
And one of the key things I took away from that was, if your child is ill, then you need to wait until that passes to be able to do certain things.
Yeah.
And so having people saying, you just have to leave them to cry. It's like, how is that going to help my child who is in pain or who is uncomfortable? That makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, they're right. They're absolutely right. And any good sleep consultant will not try and force a child to sleep. They work actually, a really good sleep consultant, in my eyes, it's about teaching parents to get out of the way. We get in our way. We disrupt a child who wants to sleep. But for my analogy for parents who might think their baby is struggling, and when it's ongoing every day, all day, every week, and month after month, the analogy is, okay, so this child is stuck inside their body. Until I say this, you're completely unaware that you have a little toe. And the moment you stub your little toe on the door, your world closes in. Your house could be on fire, but if you stubbed your toe properly, nothing else matters in that moment. Yeah. Everything is like my toe. And it's, this is the one where as parents, you learn to F and blind silently go. But in that moment, and literally anything else could be going on, it's just like, not right now. My toe needs my focus. For a child who has any sort of discomfort anywhere in their body, in their central part of their body, they can't put their awareness anywhere else. We get these kids who are super clingy usually to mum, because mum is their safest, their first point of contact.
Yeah.
Because that's their safe space. That's all they can cope with in their energy field, because there's so much that their attention is literally being dragged inwards all the time. So it's our job to figure out what is it that's going on for them. And every single child is telling us through their symptoms, behaviors, responses, and events in their life exactly what has happened. And I play the role of Sherlock Holmes and go, right, well, let's how we piece these things together, and then we get the answer. When we help get a child comfortable in their body, like, and this can be days. I get people going, oh my goodness, who is this child? Like, they're gone off. They just like wandered off. He hasn't wandered off in a year and a half. He's wandered off today. He's gone to granny with a book. Like, they see these children who all of a sudden go from being inward and clingy to being, oh, I want to explore the world now. What is this place? And that is like, it's so, so important, because these things, if they're left, they perpetuate over the life of the child. And I hate the phrase that children will grow out of reflux. Nobody grows out of reflux. What they do, yeah, I know, it's a big one.
That's a big one. Just, whoa, let me just, nobody grows out of reflux. Say what? People are going to go, what is she talking about?
Like, I hate her, I'm turning her off. What happens is they learn to cope. They learn coping strategies. They will eat different ways. They will, like me, I will choke regularly. I have learned an unhealthy way to swallow, which means at least twice a month, I will choke on a glass of water. My tongue doesn't work properly because of my tongue tie. Okay. My digestion suffers because of my tongue tie. My dental health suffers because of my tongue tie. I have beautifully crooked teeth because of my tongue tie. I have lower backache all the time. I can't sit up straight for a long period of time because of my tongue tie. But my body has learned ways to cope. I had to go to speech and drama lessons when I was 5 years old to learn how to articulate properly, because my tongue didn't actually do what it didn't have the freedom to do what it wanted to do to help me communicate properly. When I went to school, nobody other than my parents could really understand me. So speech and drama lessons to help me articulate everything was the answer. You know, people will see it on live videos and all of these things that I do. I'll often fall over my tongue because it doesn't move as quickly as I want it to. And it's because of this stuff earlier in life. You know, babies don't grow out of digestive discomfort. They learn to cope, or worse, their body gets hidden inflammation. And we get children who are labeled with bad behavior or overly emotional or all these sort of things, when actually there's an underlying inflammation going on in their gut.
Wow, that is huge, isn't it? So it is reflux like more of a lifelong thing then?
So the reflux, the regurgitation element of it may not stay.
Right.
But if, for example, if that regurgitative element is caused by air intake from tongue tie, then restricted tongue movement impacts the quality of digestion.
That's there forever, isn't it? Yeah.
It impacts the quality of sleep if children start sleeping with their mouth open. Like mouth breathing during sleep means the body does not get into the fourth stage of deep sleep. Okay, so that is when we process emotions. So a child might look like they're getting enough sleep by getting 12 hours, but the quality might not be what it should be. And therefore, what we see is, and there's a high proportion of children who are diagnosed as ADHD, actually don't have true ADHD. What they have is extreme chronic sleep deprivation, because their body has not been doing this consolidation of emotions while they're sleeping in this fourth stage of deep sleep, because they're sleeping with their mouth open. They're not getting the oxygen to the brain that happens when we breathe through our nose. And it builds up over years and years and years. So by the time they're 8, 9, 10, their behavior is, you know, they're getting categorized as having awful behavior and tantrums, etc., etc. Literally an overwhelming emotional state that, you know, it just boils up and it explodes out. Because it hasn't been processed during the sleep hours. It's like the research.
So, and this is it. It's all, like you say, it comes back to, it's all interconnected, you know. And I was just thinking there, the work that I do is to help parents support their children with these emotions, with their feelings, and
Yeah.
how to cope with all of that. And what I love is getting to know people like you who can help people get to the root causes of some of these issues, you know.
Yeah.
And you need both. You need to be able to manage all of that, and you need to find the root causes. You need to be supporting your children with their health and all of that. Now, we could talk for so long, but we do need to wrap things up soon. So I really want to ask you the question of what is the conscious shift that you want to see in the world? Like, what is your vision?
So this, you know, this, it came to me recently, not recently, a few months ago when I was in Costa Rica. So I thought my purpose was simply to help other people avoid the 3 years of parenting hell that we had at the beginning, and to start enjoying being parents and finding their feet in those first few years. And
you say just, right? That's it. I mean, that's massive.
I thought that was it. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty big. That's big.
Huge. Yeah.
However, I realized because of the ongoing lifelong stuff that this does, the impact to digestion, the connection between digestive health and mental health, the connection that I've been doing and working on myself in our spiritual, emotional, energetic sides. When we are unhealthy in our bodies, when we are stuck in our bodies, when we are eating foods that don't support our expansion, if we have children growing up who are medicated long-term, who are in constant pain, so their attention is being brought in physically into their body, they're not available to connect with their greatness, with their energy, with their spirits, with any of that. And so this is about creating a generation who are naturally more connected to whatever it is that we are part of. They are healthier human beings. They are a healthier generation. It's easy for them to learn because they go to schools. Oh yeah, I got that. And I've seen this with my kids because of the way they've been, you know, what food we've chosen, etc. They're like, they run rings around me.
So I'm going to be really cheeky.
Yeah.
So you mentioned certain foods. Like, what are like 3 foods that you think should be avoided or
sugar
reduced?
Anything sugar based in children.
I knew you were going to say sugar. Of course it is. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of obvious.
Majority sugar. Sugar is one because of it's a drug. It's actually more addictive than cocaine. No, it's more addictive than heroin. Sorry. Yeah. To get it. That was done by a study in 1996 at Beaumont University.
I remember that. I don't remember the study, but I remember the whole thing of sugar being more addictive than heroin. Yeah.
Sugar causes massive problems. Gluten. And I know people go, causes massive problems. There is a neurosurgeon from the States, Dr. David Perlmutter, who has written a book called Grain Brain. Actually, he wrote it years and years and years ago. And he basically says, if anybody comes into his office with anything head-based, he goes, it could be mental health, it could be brain trauma, it could be physical, or it could be perceived, emotional, mental. The first thing he says is stop eating grains. Most importantly, stop eating gluten, because gluten, the wheat we eat these days is not the same as the ancient grains. So if you're eating wheat, go for sourdough, like artisan sourdough, opt for the ancient grains if you get them, you know, einkorn, kamut, spelt, and I can't remember the fourth one. But those grain used to grow, wheat used to grow to about 6 to 8 foot tall. Okay, it was a slow growing crop. Over the last 60 years, the entire crop of wheat is now grows to about 2 foot. It's force grown. The protein, which is the gluten content in it, is about 70% when it used to be 30%. So we're eating more of it. We're also not eating it in a balanced way. We have it at breakfast and lunch and dinner in our toast and our sandwiches and our pasta. So it's not a balanced way of eating it anymore either. So it becomes like glue. Gluten, it actually Greek for glue. If you make flour and water into a paste, it's actually how they make Elmer's glue. It's made of flour. So it actually sticks to the intestines. Like if these are the intestines, it coats them, which means the absorption quality of the gut reduces. So for young children, I recommend no gluten. And actually, it's not that difficult. It's just that we've become addicted to it.
And this is the thing, it's so much is it a mindset shift really for parents, isn't it? You know?
Yeah. And in the first 2 years of life, children don't actually need starchy carbohydrates. What they need is fats, good quality fats, not deep fried fats, because the first 2 years of life, they're physically building the brain. At birth, the brain is 25% of its adult size. By the time they're 5, it's 95% the size of its adult size. Phenomenal. It's the only organ we are born with that is not fully formed in terms of its full, like its structure. It's not. So the body requires fats to build it because the brain is built of phospholipids, it's fatty tissues. And so if we give the body these fats, it will physically build the brain. You're giving children these brains that can then run the body free easily and do all of the other magical things they need to do. And like I have observed that children who have high quality fat foods early in life find things like school super easy. Like fat is the only nutrient that the World Health Organization says do not limit the quantity of these that a child has under the age of 2. There's an upper limit for carbohydrates. There's an upper limit for protein because that both of them lead to obesity if they're consumed excessively. High quality fats do not limit them under the age of 2. So avocados, egg yolks if baby's safe with eggs, olive oil, coconut oil, olives, all of these fabulous quality fats, animal fat, especially if you can afford organic, go for the 20% fat on the minced lamb and the minced beef and things like that you're using. Good quality fish every now and again, a nice salmon, etc. All of these foods we think as fat, they are phenomenal for babies. Phenomenal.
Wow. Do you know, so much richness in this conversation, so much information. You are a wealth of knowledge, and it's been amazing to speak to you today and get a real sense of, the kind of work that you do, the mission you're on. And for me, it's really important for me to know and to have allies, to have people that I feel confident recommending, and this conversation has really supported me in increasing my confidence. I'm like, before I was like, well, if you need, if you've got reflux, then Áine is the person to see, right? And so I was already doing that before. However, now I'm like, oh my God, absolutely she is. Like,
thank you, Sarah.
So amazing, because it's this change, this shift in a holistic approach and a conscious approach to living, a conscious approach to parenting, requires, support in all these different areas, and so, I'm so excited to get to know you more deeply. And thank you so much for being so open-hearted and so generously sharing your knowledge in this episode. I know it's going to help loads of people. Like for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, light bulb moment. Oh my gosh, light bulb moment. It's been amazing.
Well, thank you, Sarah. It's been a pleasure. I mean, I love being able to share my work because it is so important. And any opportunity to get out in the world is like, yes, please. So thank you for having me here.
Well, thank you for coming. And is there anything that you want to leave people with for this episode?
It's just going back to, I think I said at the beginning, trust yourself. As a parent, you are the world's leading expert in your baby.
Yes.
I know about reflux. You know about, parenting and behaviors and all of that. Doctors know about lots of stuff. Osteopaths know about stuff. And then it's a parent's job, in my view, to speak to all of these practitioners and then go, I like that bit, and I like that bit, and I like that bit. And to then create their plan for their child.
Totally.
Because not everything I say is going to be right for every child.
Mm.
But but we can create the most incredible places when we say, I feel supported.
Mm-hmm.
And as practitioners, I think it's really important that we don't get offended if people don't do what we say. It's like, this is my recommendation. And then it's up to you to decide if it's right for you and your child.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I'm working with a group at the moment, and I was just saying this the other night, you are the expert. Like, your child best. Nobody else is there.
Yeah.
Like I can make recommendations. I can give you tools and help you build a toolkit, but which tool is going to work when for your child and what suits them, it's really down to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think parents shouldn't be afraid to try new things and to go, that one didn't work, we'll park it. And this one did work, so we'll keep it. And not just to just do things because somebody that they perceive has authority, which I find a lot with parents and medication and stuff. They're like, well, the doctor says. I'm like, well, what do you say? What do you think? What do you want? And then go and have a conversation with a doctor that says, actually, I'm the decision maker here. Tell me this information so I can make a better decision.
Yeah.
And seek out that information. Don't be afraid to trust yourselves, because parents
Trust and asking
know
questions.
more.
That's
Yes.
it. Trust and asking questions, yeah. Thank you so much.
I will stop talking, Sarah. You might need to just cut me
I'm going to
off.
stop recording. I'm cutting you off. I'm cutting you off.
Well, thank you for having me here.
Yeah, we've got so much knowledge. We could just tap into that for hours, but thank you. And
More than
thank you
welcome.
for today. Amazing.